Most people are sleepwalking through life, poisoned by their food, their deodorant, even their toothpaste, trading their health for convenience, trading their freedom for a paycheck, living the deferred life plan, waiting for retirement to finally feel alive. That's the mental prison. That's the matrix. But we're not here to play that game. We're here to be free dudes, men and women who dare to live on our own terms. And today's episode is the jailbreak. I sat down with Nadine Artemis, the creator of Renegade Beauty, to uncover how to reclaim your energy, your health, and your sovereignty in a world designed to keep you weak, sick, and dependent. So if you're done being a cog in the machine, lean in because freedom starts in your body. And this conversation just might wake you up. Nadine, you are the reason why I don't use commercial soap, shampoo, or deodorant. I actually do my own deodorant. We're going to go into what my ingredients are. And I know you have your own thing. But for the people new to you, how would you describe yourself and what you do and your mission?
Well, I can describe what I do. I don't know if I use it, but myself will find out, I guess, throughout the podcast. But I have been since my teens. Well, my teens were very normal, like very 1980s version, and a lot of suds and chemicals and all that. Prior to my teens, though, I did get to live in a lot of nature, and I was just endlessly like squishing petals and leaves and mud and putting it on my body, or even, mixing that with like the contents of my mother's bathroom, like her Chanel perfume. And so I had this urge to mix. I definitely love nature. I feel like that was my greatest teacher, and it was all, kind of through osmosis, just by being in nature. And it was sort of that information is sort of what I learned more in my 20s, where I could look back on my childhood and understand what nature was telling me. So I combined that with just that, teen fun with make I finally, as a teen, I was like, it kind of had more purpose to make all these potions. But then I was like around 18, 19, just starting university, and I really started to understand like ingredients from the food. I used to live on my way to school. I walked by this little health food store that was in a home. This very humble thing called Grains and Beans and Things. And eventually I bought it like every book in there, every grain and bean and book. And I just started to make my own food. And at the same time, I started to make my own cosmetics because I got this book. It was about how to read labels at the supermarket. I can't quite remember what it was called. It might have been by the Diamonds, but anyway, it was like amazing because this was like 1990 and we just did not have the information we have today. But I was starting to see like what all the ingredients meant on the food that we would buy. Like all brand kind of basically had a tree fiber in it, or like brown sugar was white sugar with molasses, or you could have a can of soup and it could say cheese, but that cheese could have like 20 other ingredients. So it's just starting to understand that and then relating it to all the bottles in my bathroom, which was a lot of Body Shop at the time because we thought it was like this green thing. And then I was just realizing, like, there is no dewberry. The fuzzy peach bath oil had never been impeached. There was no cucumber in the cucumber toner and all that. But it was kind of a good moment because as I was realizing that, I thought, oh, I can finally mix, like, because really all I wanted to do as a kid was sort of to mix and formulate these things. So now it was all coming together and had a purpose. And in when I was in my teens in grade 9, I did happen to come across essential oils because I did do a science fair project, and I decided to recreate perfumes because I'd understood from this book I got at the library that all perfumes were previously from these things called essential oils, which were the distillates, and they talked about them, in ancient Egypt and all that sort of stuff. So I found that fascinating, and I recreated L'air de Temps, and that's when I got my first whiffs of essential oils. And so I kind of went back to that when I was starting to mix and formulate, and then I started to write all these distillers around the world, and they were starting to sell me and send me all of their oils and samples. And then I realized it's like a whole fine wine scene out there with essential oils. And the essential oils I had been getting at the health food store were not that quality that I would opening when I was getting direct from the distillers and farmers, where they was blowing my mind, even something so simple as a tea tree, when it was real, bush stilled, not mass agriculture, it was like a whole other universe. And so I started to import all the oils and then just make and formulate, and I started my own business. And then I was still going through university, and then really fun at university, I started to take courses and kind of find my own study where I could look at things like midwifery or just things about the women's history and mystery surrounding the women's body and health and sort of the pharmacalization of women's bodies and really just human bodies. The whole medical history of humans is pretty intense. And then just realizing just how I'd even sort of culturally been brought up, which is just sort of classic, middle class North American, but just like, aspirin for a headache or Pepto-Bismol for a stomach ache. Actually it was Tylenol in the 80s. Aspirin would have been better. But just sort of saying like, so I was just sort of seeing like when there are these things, so there was sort of that cosmetic side of like, now I can make shampoo and perfume and it's so beautiful and natural. And then from also some of the books I got at the health food store, like one was called How to Get Well, which is this European naturopath, an older book. I think it was written in the 60s, can't remember the name now. But he had this whole like A to Z of like eczema, headaches, indigestion. And I just started realizing that, the little things that can go off in the body, like a headache or a stomach ache, can really be easily there's a lot of easy solutions when you really start to understand how the body's working. And so I really found that like, health and beauty were really inextricably bound. And that, through caring through our body, instead of applying toxins, we can help some of these processes. And really what I discovered too is like back in the old days, um, perfume was the medicine, you know? So there really was no division between a cosmetic and a medicine because it was all to, heal or propel the body forward, not just this masking or this, covering. Well, I guess there's always been the cover up of makeup, but just things that are really going to enhance the body. And in ancient Greece, there's this word called thiamidectomy, which literally means let perfume be thy medicine. And it is related to the thyme plant. But it's just that real understanding there was no separation from that, you know, the care of our body, the beauty of our body, the health of our body, and then, what we're putting on our body. Of course, there were no synthetics back in the day in, for most of human history. So the palette was different. And then I was finding I would look a lot at how ancient people taking care of their body, through like Roman baths or oiling the skin or the Berber women who would wash with oil as well. So understanding those aspects and bringing that in, and then also looking at a lot of formulations for cosmetics in the 1800s, before things got syntheticized, before they started isolating aromas and that kind of stuff. So that sort of was my background that brought me to creating my own line. And then as soon as I graduated, I opened up North America's first full concept aromatherapy store in 1992, and here I am today.
Yeah. There's so many things to unpack from that journey, but yeah, and you mentioned like traditions in ancient Egypt, and I'm half Egyptian. My mom's from Egypt, so like I got that blood in me, and I got like that history, and I'm really curious about like how people were living like back in the days. So you've been exploring ancient healing wisdom from all over the world, and so which culture or tradition gave you the most practical, grounded knowledge on how to like eat, heal, glow, or just live?
That's a great question. I do find a particular resonance with ancient Egypt, as you mentioned, because they really advanced essential oils, distillation of the essential oils. Cleopatra actually had a still room, like as in a distilling room, off her bathroom, and they were making fresh rose water and all that, which is, I imagine, how they had the apparatus to soak her sails in rose water as she went to visit Mark Antony, went across the sea to Rome there, and she greeted him with like this, just the aroma of rose wafting off the
Mm.
boats and that kind of thing. I was also really interested in Egypt because, and that's in that book I found that made that led me to that perfume project in grade 9. It talked about ancient Egypt, that kind of stuff. And my grandfather, my great grandfather, who I've learned more since, he wasn't Egyptian, he's English. And then the late 1800s, he would go on archaeological digs, first as an
Wow.
illustrator, then he would do some digging, and he was, so that was really interesting to read about. He did later work a bit with Howard Carter, who went on to discover Tutankhamun. But it sounds like they had some ego clashes and he left. But he then became the president of the London Egyptology Society, and then
Really?
and he also translated part of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Last Judgment, the one of the key chapters. He
Wow.
translated in the late 1800s, and I have a copy of that book as well. So there was a real resonance there, and I have a painting. Luckily, we had a fire and I lost a lot, but luckily I had one that was not here at my house, and it's his painting of the Luxor Temple. And then I have somebody sent me from a museum in Berlin a drawing that he did of a woman smelling a blue lotus flower. Like, because he was sent as an illustrator, so he would illustrate what he was seeing in the, in the ruins and the architecture and that kind of stuff.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, didn't know that. So,
He
and
even, we don't have to talk about it, but he actually, I found out later, because I was looking for history for my son, he was a part of the Golden Dawn for a moment. So he was peers with like George Bernard Shaw, William Butler Yeats, etc. And who joined the Golden Dawn in that time before he got notorious was Aleister Crowley. And he
who's
got,
that?
oh, you'll have to look it up, but he's
All
like
right.
kind of a dark figure who, you know, definitely a troublemaker, doesn't seem not a good guy. Um, Very troubled history, into a dark occult, like dark stuff. I think later he met L. Ron Hubbard in the desert, and I don't know. Anyway, that's a long story. But he was trying to take over. Aleister Crowley was, and he actually like locked him out and kind of sent him on his way, which might have changed a bit of, his course of history. So that was just really interesting.
Yeah, so cool. What a story. And I wanted to continue with like this saying, don't
Yes,
put anything on your skin that you wouldn't eat.
yes.
Why is that more than just a crunchy hippie quote, in your opinion?
Yeah, it is a crunchy hippie quote. Well, also we do eat a lot of things that I wouldn't put on my body either. So
All right. Like normally, or are we talking about you specifically?
yeah, so I meant,
I
well,
know
like,
people eat stuff I wouldn't put on
yeah,
my body.
like a mazola oil, I'm not going to eat it.
Yeah,
I don't want to put it on my body. So
yeah.
yeah, but generally it does make sense because it's, the whole body is one, and our skin is a part of our body. And it actually, when something is going through the digestive system, whether it's liquid or food, it actually, the toxins do get kind of broken down more, hopefully, with the systems that are in place, digestion, liver, kidneys. But when we do put it directly on our skin, substances go directly into our body, into our bloodstream, and we don't have the extra filtering of the kidney and the liver. So, for example, showering in chlorine can be more toxic to the body than drinking a glass of chlorinated water.
Really?
Yeah, because you're not having that filter, for
Mm.
example. So these are, the subtle things that you can look to in your home environment, like where is it coming in? You know what I mean? And, get a filter, even a inexpensive Amazon water filter, that's like under $30 on your shower will help. So again, they don't have to be complicated solutions. When I lived in the city about 20 years ago, we didn't want to invest in a whole home thing either. So we would use, the shower filters, change them regularly, and even wash like, vegetables under there or fill the bathtub. We would just fill the bathtub through the shower filter to help with that kind of stuff. But I am grateful that we don't live in the city anymore, and then we can have well water, that kind of thing. But even with well water, sometimes it can be too hard, that kind of thing. So you really want to look at your water source, for example. But so yeah, anything topical, what is showing up now, or I think generally speaking, average American woman applies about 250 chemicals a day, and that ends up,
250.
yeah, like in the whole like a classics, just sort of taking care of the body, which is really crazy. And then your body has to deal with that. And at the, in a whole year of that is like pounds of, especially if you add the water content of the products, it's like pounds of chemicals. And it does, it can stay in the body and we have enough, there's enough to deal with just even through the foods we're eating, the air, all that kind of stuff. And it does show up in the body. So, for example, I have studied a bit of breast health. I do have a chapter in my book, Renegade Beauty. And when they just studied diseased breast tissue, one thing that was common was like they all had, like I was thinking, 96% had methylparabens in the breast tissue. And I think that's an interesting example because if a methylparaben, which is like a very common preservative, and it can be used in certified organic skincare. Certified organic skincare only has to be 70 to 80% organic, and the 10 to 30%, it is actually specific. I just can't remember if it's 70 or 80%, but it doesn't have to be 100%. And then there's so much room in that other part. And a methylparaben as a preservative, it only has to be effective in a product. It's only used at like 0.01%. So it's never anything that's beyond that. There's just no point because it's effective at that level. But just it's a good example to see why something so minuscule, if it isn't a product, but it's showing up in our breast tissue. Because some of these chemicals are just more tenacious than others, and there are other choices. But it's really like the kind of the architect of most cosmetics is just kind of off. You know what I mean? They're using like rancid, chemically treated oils and ingredients. There's so many types of petroleum derivatives, and it can be a real chemical cocktail of ingredients. But you can see how just that one minuscule amount can eventually show up with repeated use. Or aluminum in deodorants. It's not a lot in each deodorant, but it's that daily accumulation, right? And generally, you're going to be using deodorant maybe for like 30, 80 years. If, there are other solutions and other ingredients for sure, but it's that, that slow accumulation that we want to look out for because again, there's a lot of stuff that's beyond our control.
Yeah, and I want to share with you my deodorant.
Yes.
Okay, so it's three equal parts of each. So one part is organic virgin coconut oil.
Beautiful.
The other one is I don't know if it's the right word in English, bicarbonate.
Yes. Sodium bicarbonate or
Sodium
baking soda.
Yeah, baking soda. And the third one is potato flour
Oh, nice. Yep. Or you could use an arrowroot.
and
Arrowroot.
arrowroot. Would that be better
I
than the
don't
potato?
know better, but just get a good organic quality for each.
Yeah. So,
And then
so
do you add
I just found that works like
it
magic on
works.
my armpits. But I want to hear about your solution because I've been hearing people just like being like huge fans of your armpit. I don't know what to call it. Is it a product or is it
Call it
a
poetic pits or underarm
yeah,
charm. Yeah.
poetic fits?
Well, they
Yeah,
are deodorants, but my friend actually said they're kind of odorants rather than a deodorant. I'm like, yeah, kind of
yeah,
makes sense. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
to your recipe, what you could do to the coconut oil part is when it's liquid, because I imagine you're just sort of gently warming it, melting it, and then mixing in the
yeah,
powders. So
yeah.
when it's liquid before the powders, you could add a little bit of essential oils,
Mm,
like maybe 5% of something like even just frankincense
mm.
or, it's just something beautiful, sandalwood, and that would make it even juicier.
All
So we
right.
make two kinds of deodorants. We do a similar one, which is Underarm Charm, which is a cream deodorant, which definitely has like a baking soda component. And I believe arrowroot, I can't remember everything, and then essential oils and stuff. So there's that. But the classic that I've been making since the 90s is our poetic pits, which are not like anywhere, but also kind of easy to make because the main ingredient in all of them is sandalwood, pure, unadulterated, beautiful sandalwood. And then all the varieties come because we change, like the other 40-50% of the formula with other essential oils that are good to put on the skin undiluted. Now, of course, the pit is a sensitive area, so there's like, a couple percent of the population it's just too much. But the reason why I started formulating with sandalwood and just having that purity, because I found, if it was mixed with water, it's too watery, and sometimes you don't feel like having that creamy, oily paste in there. And the essential oils, while they're called an essential oil and have the word oil in them, they're actually volatile, which just means simply that they are evaporative. So if you left the lid off your frankincense essential oil, it would evaporate over time. And an olive oil doesn't evaporate, it just kind of goes rancid if you left the lid off. So they're called an essential oil, but they don't have any fatty acids, any lipids. But I guess they called it an oil because it doesn't mix with water either. So that's also what I just love about essential oils because they really are, for generally speaking, they're a substance that isn't like anything else on the planet, right? It's not a fat, it's not a tincture, it's not, there's no water in it, there's no alcohol in it, there's no other substance like this. And so, if you put on your fingers, it would you could still kind of snap because it doesn't have that fatty oil. And so a genuine, pure essential oil is generally not going to go rancid. And they can seriously last for decades. Some
Wow.
might lose their, like a citrus might get a little flat, but it's not going to go bad. Many of them age well, but when they did open up different tombs and things in Egypt, and they found gallons of alabaster jars with essential oils, they were still strong and potent, and those would be fun to smell. So back to the poetic pits. Sandalwood has a phytohormone, plant hormone, that is very similar to our androsterone, which both men and women have and secrete kind of from the armpits. Like that's one of the main areas. And from the apocrine glands. And so I just felt there was a synergy there. And sandalwood has a viscosity that is thicker than most essential oils. It's got a beautiful viscosity. And so, yeah, that is the poetic pit. So also you could just use for everybody, a simple do-it-yourself, you could just dust your pit with baking soda instead of making a concoction, and or one drop of pure sandalwood essential oil will do, even actually that's way better than baking soda because essential oils, again, generally speaking, are antimicrobial, antifungal, antiviral, and anti-inflammatory. Of course, all to varying degrees, all with different, chemical constitute, natural chemicals that are, doing all their different things. Like each essential oil has probably more to discover, but each essential oil really has about 500 to 800 different natural chemical constituents which make up that one drop. And so there's a lot of medicine in there. Just something like what those chemical constituents are is something like menthol. So menthol is a compound within peppermint essential oil. So it'd be just one of those 500 points. But then in modern world, we've extracted that menthol because we're like, oh, that's what we want. We want that smell. And then they make a synthetic one or modern fragrances are grown on E. coli. So, there's a synthetic aspect, but then there's this growing bacterial aspect, which has come in the past few decades, that adds another level of kind of Frankenstein-ishness to fragrance.
So I think the biggest point, when you speak to me, for me, everything is just crystal clear. We're speaking the same language. We're having basically the same beliefs. What you're saying just comes into my ears and it goes into my mind, and there's no guard. I'm not questioning it. So most people assume if it's sold in stores, it must be safe. Or if it says organic on it, then it's also better. So, how do we get tricked into smearing petroleum, parabens, and perfume on our bodies like it's no big deal? I think like this is the question we need to like lift up, because that is like the veil that we are just having in front of our eyes. That is the matrix most people are living in, and I've been in
Mhm.
that matrix, so I know how it is to be inside of it.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, and it's the marketing on our bodies is, we're now decades and decades in, if you've been around for a while. So yeah, the marketing is heavy. And we were kind of raised that way, even, just like this is how you take your body, this is what you brush your teeth with, and it's all very just follow the program. But really, when you get into it, so many of the substances that we are using in the name of beauty or in the name of taking care of our teeth are really messing with our microbiome and with the innate immune system of our body. Like the skin is one of the most major players in the innate immune system. So, yeah, I feel like there's a lot to undo with just like let's look at mouthwash.
Mm.
Classic kind that's available and has been available for decades. It creates 36,000 cases of oral cancer a year. Now
How
that's
many?
36,000. That's a North
36.
American stat
Wow.
that's from about 2012, so it's probably higher now.
Mm.
And that's like just the classic stuff that's sold still every day to this day. And now we're understanding a little bit more. The synthetic alcohols do mutate the mouse microbiome. And when we kind of do a scorched earth policy on our mouths, like when we're just like, okay, we got to kill, that germ warfare theory that kind
Mm.
of came out of the 40s of like, okay, that's okay, pesticides, okay, like mass use of antibiotics, like just kill, kill, kill. We didn't know that the stomach, we didn't know we had a microbiome. We thought the stomach was sterile back then. Like actually, even, I think we thought that up until about the 80s or 90s. So a lot of this decision making came out of also not really knowing or understanding the body. And I think it came out of a lot of like, let's make chemical solutions with all the chemicals that are abundant. In industrial beauty, there's a lot of chemical crossover with, the chemical industries, for example. And now it doesn't take much to really understand or get the research to see how these ingredients do not serve us. And so, for example, back to the mouthwash, we're killing the mouse microbiome with that synthetic alcohol. And now we understand that our bodies or our mouths, wherever that microbiome exists, which is obviously all over, but we have these focal points, that the synthetic alcohols are not beneficial to the good bacteria. And what we want to do is create an environment in our mouths, in our guts, and on our skin where the beneficial bacteria is running the show. Because we don't know, like, we don't know how to do it. So we want them to be able to resist the pathogens. We're always probably got pathogens hanging around, but when the beneficial bacteria can, I think of it, it's not scientific, but sort of that 80-20 rule. Like, you want to have the 80% beneficial bacteria doing the job. Even in for our skin, we want to allow the bacteria to be the beautician. We don't want to scrub and strip away with oxy, whatever that's called for zits and like, chemical, I can't even remember the name now. Chemical alcohol toners that are stripping away. And then we're caught in that vicious cycle of like, oh, now we have to repair the lipid barrier because we've stripped it. Now we've damaged the stratum corneum with synthetic surfactants. And now we've stripped away with our plastic exfoliating beads all the beneficial bacteria. As gross as it sounds, we do need to allow that ecosystem on our skin. And we want to be clean, but we don't want to strip away the microbiome. So we want to apply things to the body that are tending to that garden, and if we have to clean, it's not going to strip things away. So like a what's that called? The hand stuff with the triclosan. hand sanitizer, that
Hand
gel,
sanitizer,
like,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, what they found, I believe triclosan, even though it's still allowed in toothpaste, and it's a substance that damages aquatic ecosystems, which I would consider our body as being an aquatic ecosystem. Um, so it's still out in toothpaste, but triclosan has been taken out of hand sanitizers because they realized it created superbugs. So it literally did the opposite. It took down the immune system. So it did like the opposite of cleaning the hand. It made them more ripe for viral contact. So it's a little bit upside down, and most mainstream recommendations, I usually go, okay, what is the opposite? And I'll start from there. Like I'll see if the opposite is
100%.
the starting
That
point.
is like my one principle in life. When mainstream goes to the right, I go to the left. If they go up, I will go down. Like the opposite. I just like during the pandemic, during whatever suggestions are for me how to live my life, just do the
Yes.
opposite and you will be fantastic.
Yes. It was kind of
Just
like
look
you're
at
reminding
Nadine,
me.
look at me.
You're reminding me because we just spoke about my teen years and formulating is that I had a fun rebellious streak in my teen years, but the fun thing with discovering the beauty and health was I actually then channeled it all into that. And I felt very productive because it seemed like, oh, here's where that oppositional energy can be fruitful.
Yeah. And I'm really focused on like men's health because I'm a man. I want to help other men out there. And when it comes to testosterone, we had like a huge drop in testosterone, but
Yes.
not only in testosterone. I think it's during the last 60 years, the amount of sperm. If you would like do a sperm test today and say that okay, per I think maybe it's milliliter, you have 5 million sperms, and you would go, wow, 5 million, that's a lot. But when you look at it from a historic perspective and you just go back 60 years, that was 100 million, not 5 million. So that's a drop in 95%. And then also with the testosterone drop and the more, yeah, basically men
We
becoming
got
more feminized.
Yeah, we've got the issue with the estrogens in the sense of we've got
Yeah,
xenoestrogens, xeno being foreign. So, and we both have men and women have
yeah.
estrogen receptor sites. And you know what's I always find interesting? The hormone that women have the most is actually testosterone. We have that more
Really?
than estrogen. Yeah. It's so interesting. And then there's like yeah, then there's 8 types of real estrogen. There's like a whole thing. But my point back to the synthetic estrogens, which are wreaking havoc for both men and women, because when we also don't have the right things filling up the receptor sites, then these other ones come in. Just like, if we don't have enough iodine to fill up our iodine receptors, then bromide can come in because then the body's like, oh, because it's kind of it's in the halide family of anyway, it kind of mimics it. So we have these mimics. So there's the xenoestrogens, then we've got metalloestrogens coming from all the heavy metals, the pesticides, the lead, mercury, blah blah blah, and then we have mycoestrogens, which are fungal estrogens. And now a lot of that's coming from the food supply, and we're eating estrogenic foods like corn. Oh wait, they're not inherently estrogenic, but because it's a myco, meaning fungal, so factory farming, cows are eating all that silage and the waste, and all that is just moldy, wet
Yeah,
wheat and the corn from the floor. You know what I mean? It's just like
yeah,
very mycotoxic. And then they also inject, livestock with, I forget what, but it creates a mycoestrogen too. And when they tested young girls in New Jersey about 15 years ago, they were all high in mycoestrogens from the food supply. So that is coming in obviously for men too. And then, thinking about things like prostate health, liver health, getting men in the sun. These are key things.
And what are some things that we can like just start avoiding, stop, and what can we do to, as a man, increase testosterone?
Well, first of all, change over your pits. Do a recipe like yourself. I have recipes in Renegade Beauty, or just get baking soda or sandalwood or whatever. And then if you also wear a cologne, switch your cologne. We have magical ones. And then you will be like a Pied Piper. You will smell so beautiful. People will love that. So that's one thing. So just like, because then you're not getting those toxins in your armpits every day, which are affecting your hormones. And then I'd say one of the best things for men to do, obviously there's foods, and herbs that can help with prostate health, including there's I don't know if you've had ever a discussion about peptides.
No.
Oh, that would be a great subject. I'm not a pro. I mean, I have studied with some doctors about 200 hours, but there's way better pros. But I'm an avid user and I understand them. So there's the peptides and classic, and you're generally injecting those. There's a lot available orally. And then there's the peptide bioregulators, which are derived from the gland, but they're not a glandular. So, like there's like a desiccated thyroid supplement or desiccated glands, which are helpful. This is like extract of that extract. And there's one for the prostate. So there's the bioregulators, there's about 21, and they're for each organ. So women, there's ovaries, which is amazing to take. But for men, a really good combo, and they have them in a combo now, is the pineal gland, the prostate, and the thymus gland is really good. So you're getting that moving naturally. And then it is important for both men and women, but men also, is to take eat organ meats, but like I find it a bit challenging. I really only like liver pate.
Yeah.
That's jelly and I love it.
Do you eat
Have
freeze dried organs?
Yeah, so get the capsules. And there's a few companies that really have there's lots of good companies doing like a good liver, heart, kidney, but then there's a few other companies that are just doing all the organs. So Paul Saladino's company, for example, Heart and Soil,
Heart and
great
soil
quality.
supplements. Yeah.
He has a woman's package and he has the man's package. And
Yeah.
so you've
And a
got
warrior package.
yeah,
Yeah.
full testicles in there, something like that. But yeah, but traditionally too, I mean, we were eating the glands, and that's when, they are hard to integrate a bit. It takes a bit of art in culinary art. However, I really was coming to understand that when I was doing my research for my dental book back around 208, 209, and really understanding like the more traditional ways of eating, what we really needed to bring in, what we were missing from our modern diets. And I think that the glands are a good way to get a lot of micronutrients in. And really, if you take liver capsules, it's like a multivitamin.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
look at the profile of liver, I mean, it is it, and it's in such beautiful ratios, like the minerals, the B vitamins.
Yeah.
So it's very good and really will help with virility. And again, then you want to, keep up your weight resistance exercise as well for, the male muscles and bones. Same with women too. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all because that gets the testosterone because the hormones are very connected to the muscles.
I heard that the only weight training that increases testosterone is when you lift heavily with your legs. So you can pump your chest and arms. That
Yeah.
doesn't do any. That's just what I heard. Do
I
you know
have heard
anything
that
about that?
too, but I think like if we generally think though, like it's kind of a whole package. Maybe that arm presses aren't getting you the testosterone, but it's like just speaking to your endocrine system through your muscles. And I think that's important because it's also communicating to your bones and the fascia, which we just now know as everything is so connected. And then sunshine. Sunshine is so key. I can see you understand sunshine because you have that perfect melanin tone.
I'm so proud of
Yes.
my skin tone, and you gave me the compliment before we started the show.
Yeah, your skin is so glowing. And I love
Thank
that
you.
because,
Thank
yeah. And then they told me that you took my advice, like, what was that? Maybe 15 years ago.
15 years ago, and even like with the armpits and what I put on my skin, and 20 years ago, I just stopped using any form of cologne.
Yes.
I've been natural for 20 years. So I was like really lucky to be able to have one of my mentors, Stephen Acuff, also on the podcast, but he was my naturopathic first teacher.
Awesome.
And he was just like my Morpheus to the Neo, and just like blew my mind open, really explaining in a way that I could see the corruption in like the huge industries, and what was actually happening with our food, and why we are getting poisoned and stuff like that. So it's a long journey, but health is not easy, because I feel that we are just like bombarded, as you said, your shower, what you drink in your tap water, what you put on your skin. And could you also go into the clothes you wear, what you wear on your skin? What do you say about
Yes.
that?
Well, for sure, like 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 your undershirt and underwear, you really want to have organic. And there are plenty of studies that show that the polyester underwear and testicles are not friends
Yeah.
at all. And I mean, I know as a woman, you're just like, don't wear polyester underwear. I mean, most women, it just does not create, it creates an environment that will give you vaginal infections, like yeast infections. So we can see that. And then for the men, it is not allowing a breathable environment. And cotton is pretty, it's very, it's the most pesticided thing on the
All
planet.
right.
Apparently, like, I could be exaggerating, but it's right up there. And so for sure, organic cotton in those two places, like totally organic underwear, and like a boxer brief, or just something that you don't have you don't want to have tighty whities, and you don't want them polyester. So
Yeah.
that is really key. And then, I would try to do natural fiber as much as possible. Socks, I think, should be natural fiber as well. So merino wool, cotton, and your feet will not smell. Like, it's like literally the major part of the battle. And then again, like t-shirts, which is pretty key for a guy, I would go organic there as well. And definitely, because if you have even a bit of poly in there, your armpits smell, you'll just be like, it just, so that it's not helping. You will definitely need way more deodorant if you have polyester t-shirts on, because it traps the smell, and it also just stays in the shirt and stuff. So definitely try not to poly right next to the skin, and be as natural as possible. I mean, there has been recent things too that just show like the frequency of the pure fibers, is just better. I mean, it totally makes sense. So look for linen, merino, mohair, cashmere,
Mhm.
wool, all those that good stuff as much as possible.
It's incredible how merino wool. I had a couple of merino wool underwear, because I loved going camping, and that's like
Yes,
a
that's
camping
key.
thing here in Sweden.
Yes,
I bet it is in Canada, because our
yes,
countries are so
so
similar when it comes to
similar.
being outdoors, the climate, so many things.
Yeah,
And I found that the underwear, they never smelled.
yeah, that makes
Like,
sense.
like if I wanted to, because I was out in the wilderness for quite a while, I could go with them like for weeks without them smelling.
Yeah, it's those brilliant, and it makes sense. That's what the animals are, that's their outfit. So it's their hair.
That's the outfit, yeah. So let's talk about oral care. So most people brush their teeth with like foaming paste filled with fluoride and sweeteners. What's actually going in our mouths, and how do we rebuild healthy oral ecosystem? Because you wrote a book about this. Can you speak about your book, and also about like what can we do instead of putting in poison in our mouths?
Yeah. So I wrote that book. I first wrote a previous version of the book around 208 or something. I just self-published because I was like, we kind of got to get this information out there. There has been since then such an explosion of dental books, but it was really that first one of like, I'm just a person with teeth. I am not a dentist, but let's figure this out. Because I did not like going to the dentist either. And I just really realized they've gotten everything else about the body wrong. So this part has got to be wrong. And in those
Mm.
earlier years, when I was like putting it all together in my early 20s, I found there was a lot on health, but again, nothing for the mouth. And again, we've kind of gotten it wrong. We didn't know there was a microbiome. We literally thought the teeth aren't connected to the rest of the body somehow, even though there's literally like root systems and blood supply. Um, so that's kind of crazy.
Quick shout out. If you want to check out Nadine's amazing creations, hit the link in the show notes and visit her store, Living Libations. No kickback, no affiliate. I make nothing. It's just pure good stuff I know will serve you. So, all right, back to the show. Check out her book as well. Let's continue.
And then what I really understood, which I think is sort of like kind of key to know about the teeth, because I'm trying to understand like, okay, A, we're probably should be doing the opposite of what we've been told, and B, like what in our biology allows it to happen in the body so that maybe do we even need to do anything? Like, so maybe, yeah, let's replace our deodorant, but like first question, do we even need deodorant? And of course, like we don't, but you know,
Yeah.
it is good to, not everybody like sweats perfectly neutral. So, yes, so the teeth, so this was discovered by this dentist who was pretty sure there was a systemic connection between the teeth and the body, go figure, because he used to get severe allergies and he couldn't be a dentist for for the month of August. This was in the 50s. So somebody said, stop eating white bread, white sugar, and milk in those times. And he totally cleared him up. So he was just found, oh, like everything's connected. And so then he stopped practicing dentistry and went into studying it. And through thousands of tests and working with an endocrinologist eventually, he understood the path of like what sort of makes the teeth active. So what happens is we chew, which is like chemical messengers, it signals to the hypothalamus. Like I feel like everything eventually goes to the hypothalamus. There's these glands here, the parotid glands that also signal. And we chew and there's nutrients and then that gets digested and then the blood brings it back up into the tooth. And then through that process, it fenestrates into the pulp chamber, which is the center core, the heart of the tooth. And there it becomes a lymphatic fluid. So every tooth has a dentinal lymphatic fluid system, which they didn't know about. And quite frankly, most dentists don't because this isn't taught in school, but it's real. So that has this, like, I call it the natural toothbrush. So that's like, because we weren't born with a toothbrush and a tube of crust in our hands. So like, what would the body do without those modern inventions? And so this lymphatic fluid is centrifugal. It's like spiraling upwards into the tooth and then out onto the surface. And it's like microscopic sweat that coalesces with the saliva. And then that sends to where the teeth need to be protected. And so it's this outward force that's like flushing the teeth and it's preventing decay. Now, when we're stressed, we're not mineralized. There could be so many things. We have a cell phone by our ear, like all day. Hormonal times like teenage years, pregnancy, all that can create stress that would then stagnates that lymphatic system. So then we've got a stagnation and we don't have that cleansing flush. But if things get worse and time goes on, then that system actually reverses. So it's not just stagnant, it's actually sucking into the tooth from the mouth. And then, which is very active with all kinds of things and every day. And so then that is actually the genesis of a cavity through that porous tooth going into reverse. And it's like getting to the heart of the tooth. So to prevent that, you want to have that good dentinal flow, which really is about mineralization. There's, obviously vitamin D3, K2 are very important. They usher minerals into the bones. So if we're not sufficient in the D3, K2, then our bones aren't getting the minerals. And so what also to have that dentinal flow, you need ample magnesium, calcium, the calcium phosphorus ratio needs to be happening as well. One of my favorite calcium phosphorus supplements, because it's together and it's balanced, is back to Paul Saladino's Heart and Soil. He has one called Bone Matrix. And I feel it's one of
Yeah, I've seen it.
yeah, that you'll feel it in your teeth because we all need more, generally, we all need more of that kind of mineralization with the D3K2. So that is really key on a nutritional level. And I have found, and I do like to talk about it because people like yourself and the people that we talk to are generally healthier eaters. Um, but it's interesting because I feel like really since the 90s and present moment, we've eaten a lot more vegetables than we ever have.
Let's talk about that. I'm debating my wife. I'm telling her I need more meat because she does
You
most of
do.
it. Oh my God. I don't feel like my best version right now because like the consumption of meat and organs has been so low for a couple of months. I've
Yeah.
been feeling my health deteriorating
Well, that's so
like heavily.
interesting.
I need to just like stand yeah, closer to the fridge where I have my organic meat.
Yes.
It's a grass fed. It's not organic. It's from a farmer close by.
Yeah.
So it's
It's good to
grass
know
fed.
your farmer. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, you're on the right path because like I've been, yeah, I've had many years where, like back in the 90s, like I generally was a vegan. And so I feel like I've
Yeah,
explored it. And I think also that when you're younger too, you have your reserves. And it's like when you start seeing
exactly.
it a bit later, when you're like after I breastfed for like almost 5 years. And then I was like, my bones, right?
Mhm.
And that's so what I came to understand through my dental research is in vegetables, grains, and beans, generally, I'm being general here, there are anti-nutrients.
Yeah.
So phytic acid being one of them, that's why we soak the grains and blah, 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 and oxalates. And I knew about oxalates and was always like, yeah, don't eat beet greens, it's high in oxalates, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't really understand it fully. And there's two issues, well, there's a few, but the two main things with oxalates are they're shards. Like literally, if you look at them in a microscope, they are like arrow. They're called some of them like they're one of them's called even a graphite, which is named after an instrument. So they're like shards of glass. Some of them are a little bit longer, like little bows. Every plant is different. So like the ones from kiwi are a bit different than the almond ones. But you can see them. And so these shards lodge themselves into kind of where our Achilles heel might be. So it's going to be different for people, but could manifest as arthritic or joint issues for somebody.
Mm.
80% of people over 50 have oxalate shards in their thyroid. It can be a root cause or definitely a big player in like Hashimoto's. For some, it's gallstones, kidney stones, all those kind of little inflammatory issues throughout the body. So that's a huge thing. But then the other thing that's pretty key with the oxalates is that they chelate minerals, the ionizing, alkalizing minerals out of the body. And
Yes.
so you can literally like for some tartar is oxalates. That's like your teeth calcium leaving. I mean, there's a whole thing with plaque and everything too, but that could be some of it. It's like literally your teeth demineralizing. So you know when you eat spinach and your teeth feel fuzzy after, that's the minerals leaving your teeth,
Mm.
right? So that's one issue. And then the other like thing that kind of comes in with the leaching of the minerals is that plants, even if they're organic, they suck up, they draw into themselves the heavy metals. So yeah, there was I really neat thing done with kale, and then seeing that it was giving people thallium. Like, and I remember when we had our peak kale years back in like 2010, I call it peak kale. We had we had thallium like through the roof. We couldn't, it took years to figure out where it was coming from. It's coming from the
Yeah.
organic kale because there's a lot of issues with like soil right now. Like, is it organic? Is it heavy metal? Is it sludge? But let's just take it like even out in the wilds. There are, like wild rice can draw up the arsenic from the soil, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that.
So that's why actually it took me a few years to really get it, but that's why white rice is better than brown rice.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that.
So
I was like so huge on full grain brown rice.
yes, and
That's
we had
like,
so much arsenic in our blood
yeah.
from the
Yeah.
rice years.
Yeah. From the rice
So
field.
yeah,
I had those too.
yes. And then you're getting rid of the minerals that would help with that heavy metal balance. And then we're not in the sun, not getting our melanin, which also helps to chelate heavy metals out of the body. So there's a whole little system there. And the sun gives us vitamin D and healthy cholesterol to also form teeth, that kind of, or to like strengthen teeth. So there's that whole thing, but that's like with the oxalates, and you might want to interview Sally Norton. She's kind of the queen of oxalates because she finally really
Right.
she got it all together in two really good books. And it really started for me because I've been sort of seeing and helping people with their health since like the 1990s, or like, thousands of people have come up to me with their health issues, that it's like very educational for me. And I really feel like there's an autoimmune thing that has been happening, and part of it's because of the plants. Even
Really?
though, I've definitely had my non-meat years, but now I feel like I'm not like carnivore, but I'm mainly meat. Like
Yeah.
that is and that feels so right. And the simplicity of it, and also the non-management of vegetables is pretty liberating.
Yeah.
When we live out in the woods too, it's like the shipping, the storing, the cutting, the dicing. Also, the whole time you're like, is this like celery that we transported from California, like in a plastic bag, like even though it's
Mm.
organic? What is it even doing for me?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And we're soon getting into August. And if I'm right, I think there's a challenge with Dr. Paul Saladino and Heart and Soil Supplements, which is called Animal Based 30. So
Oh,
it's 30 days where you go animal based and you have this whole community. So I've done it two times, and then one time it's just extended. I just like went animal based for 4 months, and I felt like the best. The weird thing is, usually I just do a couple of kettlebells and Olympic rings. Like I just move when I feel like it. I don't go to the gym,
awesome.
but I'm in pretty good shape because I move during the day, and I
Yeah,
have 3 kids.
you've
So
integrated into your life.
what I noticed after 30 days of the animal-based diet, my strength doubled. I kid you not. When it comes to
Wow.
doing how many reps of pull-ups I could do on the Olympic rings, how many with the 32-kilo kettlebell I could snatch up over my head. Like, it just doubled, but I didn't train. I didn't focus on training. I
Amazing.
just like worked a lot, did the animal-based 30 challenge, and I just like felt phenomenal. Never
That's
felt
gotta help your
so
testosterone.
good. And that helped my testosterone for sure.
Yeah, so
So
the plants are kind of taking, like, again, sometimes it's too much information.
yeah.
If you have an autoimmune, it's just a lot of information, you know what I mean, in those plants, which we appreciate when they're medicine. But and also we're eating foods that we've never had access to all the time. So when we were eating more seasonally, there was like more oxalates in the summer with berries and vegetables. And then in the winter, you're having all that oxalate free time. But we've been packing it and storing it, and it does not leave until you really start to have less. And then
Mm,
it can take a few years to get the oxalates out. But we're finding things like pulse electromagnetic frequencies, saunas, carbon. We're doing these carbon suits and inhaling right now, which is super fun.
mm.
You just put yourself in a bag of carbon, basically.
I feel there's so many biohacks just to
Oh,
keep us healthy, which
yes.
is also super costly. It takes a lot of time. I don't want to live in a world where I need to protect myself from the artificial
Yes.
light, from the air in the room. That I'm having a air filter here in my studio, and the blue blocking glasses. It like there's so much, but I wanna go a little bit superficial now,
Sure.
and talk about teeth.
Yes. Oh,
When
yeah. Teeth.
the color of teeth.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
if your teeth are a bit yellow and you want white teeth, what can one do that won't damage like what you're doing? So
Yeah,
I
there's a lot that can be done, and just sort of like it's a little bit slower than maybe just like, getting it all taken care of with like a bleaching strip or something like that.
yeah, exactly.
So obviously, first there are different tones of our white teeth. So just who knows, maybe yours could like generally be genetically a little bit yellower. I don't mean yours, but in general. But
Yeah.
here's the trick, or here's what to know. First of all, whiteness for the tooth comes from within. So the enamel is actually like a window, it's transparent, and it's the health of our tooth reflecting through. So I don't know if you've ever seen, well, maybe, but like if you've seen grayish, glassy teeth,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So that's like could be could be a vegan because that
Yeah.
I've seen that happen. It
Mm.
happens over time. And that's because you're leaching out the minerals and then not getting the fat and the minerals back in. So it's really important. D3K2, at least be a vegetarian and get because the thing with the vegan too, you could be having like oats for breakfast, then lentils and then rice and then like, almonds and spinach. And that's like just
Yeah.
like not good.
Mm.
Um, so my point is, so it could be the diet partly. So you really want to make sure you're getting that, bone matrix and the D3K2 as a very basic, like, so that what you're really giving the right message and giving the nutrients to the core of the tooth. Then topically, some of it could just be sort of plaque that's semi-discolored from, the chaga, the coffee, the blueberries, or whatever, because especially in our
Yeah.
community, we're eating a lot of pigmented foods
Mm.
and the red wine, whatever. And so it could just be like a really good cleaning is needed, which you can do. We have these 8 steps, or go to your good hygienist that's like holistic. And there's a thing that they can do. Well, not every dentist has it, but it's like a salt blast. It kind of like, when they sandblast architecture. So this is like
Yeah.
a dry
With
salt blast.
dry salt. Do you do this one time, or how does
You
it?
can do it
How do you?
every cleaning visit.
Uh,
There's no danger.
yeah.
And then following the 8 steps, working with something like we have one paste that has a nano hydroxyapatite in it, and it's like that helps to whiten and smooth out surfaces. And it had been in a few toothpaste before because it
Mm.
does show to not do bone loss.
Mm.
Um, there is issues with fluoride, so we don't have to go into that. But dentists do say, oh, it's better than fluoride, even though I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's a low bar. And so just know that can help in too, again, structurally, and it's preparing the teeth. And then on a really simple level, you get some hydrogen peroxide, 3%. And then there's a couple things you can do. You don't necessarily use that every day, because it can be a bit astringent on the gums. It's literally safe to use every day, but there can be, if the gums aren't needed a little more health, or they're already receding, it can just make them be a bit like tight. You know what I mean? So you want to, if you are using the hydrogen peroxide, just do a rinse afterwards with baking soda. So just put a pinch in water and swish. It's an instant alkalinizer. But you can either just spray it on your brush and then just do that and do it a few times a week. And then in a couple weeks, they'll be whiter and brighter, and then keep up with the other stuff. And you can also do this thing where you just take some baking soda in a jar and put your 3% diluted hydrogen peroxide on it in it and just sort of make it like a slurry, like a mushy paste, and then leave the top off and let it evaporate a bit. And then you'll be left over with a kind of hydrogen peroxide infused baking soda. And that's really good because then the baking soda has that bit of the grit that can help polish and get the plaque removed, so that will totally bring out the whiteness. And I was just going to say a note on baking soda because we love it for our armpits. It's also amazing for toothpaste. So you could
Mm.
literally just use baking soda and hydrogen peroxide for the rest of your life, and you will be a million times better off than using anything from the drugstore, for sure.
Hydrogen peroxide. I need to translate that to Swedish.
Oh yeah,
That
it's
is.
like a practical, I don't know what it, but it's so common. It's like a common
Where do they sell it?
drugstores. I mean, you can get
Drugstore.
better quality at a health food store. There's,
All right.
but generally it's a thing that isn't like, even if it's at a drugstore, it is what it is. It's kind of one of those things like baking soda. You know,
Yeah.
people talk about it in aluminum, but actually it's baking powder that has the aluminum issue.
Yeah.
So not baking soda. So literally, I mean, from what it seems like people have tested, like Arm& Hammer baking soda, which is kind of just classic. It's been around for like 100 years, baking soda, that brand is fine. So if that's all you can get, that's fine. And if you just made your paste with the baking soda, you'd be fine. And then sometimes we get questions like, is it too abrasive? Or my dentist said it was too abrasive, and it is not. It has a dental abrasivity rating of about 7 or 8. Most toothpastes are over 100. Some sensitive toothpastes are around 70. So there's literally no issue with the baking soda abrasivity, but it does give you that little bit of, that polish where you can remove plaque a bit better. Kind of like exfoliating the teeth a bit.
Yeah, got you. Do you know about the brand? It's a German brand called Weleda.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I've been using their salt toothpaste for 20 years now.
Yes, I mean, I had a phase where I used that too before I made my own. I think back in the
Yeah.
90s, I was using it. I'd have to check. I bet there's something I could find that would be an issue with it.
Yeah, you think
Um,
so?
Probably. But I will but you know what we'll send you? We're gonna send you some Poetic Pits, some
Yes,
toothpaste, and a
yes,
new
please.
cologne so that you can
And
just have
something
fun.
for my teeth. If
Oh,
Weleda is not good enough.
well, we have also we
Yeah.
have these dental syringes. So there's these glass syringes that you can then put your own. So we have these dental serums that you could put in there, healthy gumdrops, that kind of stuff. You can just get it in between the teeth and really the gum line, because that's where it starts to pull away. So that where the gum and the teeth meet is very special, and we totally need to take care of that because that's where the trouble starts. If
Yeah.
we're brushing like back and forth, we're literally doing microscopic sweeps under that rug of the gum.
Mhm.
And so you actually want to do one way. So it's from the gum down or the bottom gum up. And you have to just kind of retrain. It gets faster, but you're just doing one way brushing. So you're away from the gum. So you start at the gum and then you move up or down, depending, but not up and
Like
down, up
this.
and down. Yes.
So, like just one
Yes.
way.
Yes.
Okay. And not like this.
Exactly. And get that toothbrush right up into the cheek, like right to the top of the gum, because that's like, it
Ah.
could use the stimulation, like the kind of like, think of dry brushing in a way, like your
Yeah.
skin, like it's like, and then if you've got good ingredients or our dental serums, which are very concentrated little medicants to put along the gum, they help to speed gum healing. You put it on your floss, and if you do that for a day or two, like generally people will stop bleeding when they floss right away, and you're getting that antifungal, antiviral stuff right in there. And then the syringe, you could take the diluted hydrogen peroxide, for example. You could put a little baking soda water in there, and then you can shoot it in between the teeth. It's like a blunt tip syringe.
Yeah.
So it won't pierce the skin, but you're going to use it, and then you're going to flush out the gum line. And then that's
Mm.
going to allow it to come back down. And if you've ever been told your pockets are getting whatever deeper, bigger from like a 2-3 to like a 7-8-9, this is what you want to do. And you can, it will come down, and you can regain your pockets to like a 2 or a 3, even though some dentists might feel you can't, or they might suggest surgery. But the surgery, gum grafts, it doesn't deal with the root cause, which could be brushing with too much pressure. Sodium lauryl sulfate, which is a very common toothpaste ingredient, causes gum recession. So that's kind of silly. And just,
Yeah.
so even teeth clenching can cause gum recession. But what's the main cause of TMJ or bruxism? Vitamin D deficiency. So it's like sometimes we're looking at things structural when it's like a mineral balance. And so there's always a way out. There's always a deeper way in when we can kind of get underneath things and then see how they're working. So that's where I really like to understand, like, let's get into it. Let's look at the root cause, because so many of our modern solutions for health and beauty are just like band-aid after band-aid, or literally making things worse.
That's such a huge shift in perspective when it comes to like to oral health. And you said the word root cause several times. Have you seen the documentary called Root
You
Cause?
know what? I haven't because I don't know they were moved, but I love that
You
it came
probably
out.
know everything about it, but it's for anybody listening there, see the documentary Root Cause about root canals.
Yes.
And it follows a man that he went like to every alternative healing treatment he could, even did ayahuasca, like he did everything until he met a someone doing kinesiology
Oh yeah.
and finding out that okay, your issue is in your
Yes.
tooth,
That makes
and
sense.
then he got healed from
That
it.
totally makes sense. And I'd written the books came out before the movie, and I totally went into root canals because that was one of the major
Yeah.
things I had understood.
Mm.
And I do go into that into the book, and it's in Renegade Beauty. There's which is not my dental book, but there's a really good
Yeah.
dental chapter, and I wrote it a bit later. This is about I published that book about 7 years later than the dental book. But my point is, there's that, and then there's also jaw cavitations. So
Mm.
extracting the tooth, which isn't done where they're supposed to also remove a periodontal ligament. Well, no, I mean classically they don't. That's the way it's taught. But
Yeah.
what they've discovered is it needs to be removed. Otherwise, any tooth that we've had removed, so if you had your wisdom teeth removed when you were 20 or whatever, underneath that could be because they didn't remove the periodontal ligament and then the gum kind of grows over, rotting jawbone,
Yeah.
and it doesn't show up in an x-ray until it's about 80% gone. So a good dentist will know how to check it and they will clean it, which doesn't take much because the tooth's already gone. So they're going to actually, they go in and they scrape the bone and they scrape the infection off, and then they'll inject, and then that creates a blood clot, which clears things out. Then they inject with ozone and then hopefully some of your own plasma, because those sites can really bring somebody down, and it could be a hidden thing of like, you know, why there's an autoimmune issue somewhere else. And that's the same with the
Yeah.
root canal, because in theory, it was a good idea. We'll just take out the middle of the tooth, the pulp chamber, and then you still have original tooth chewing surface. It kind of makes sense, right? Except we can't seal that tooth, and it becomes basically this necrotic nest, this bacterial breeding ground that squirts bacteria into your bloodstream every time you chew. And
Wow.
nothing can get into it for our immune system, like the white blood cells, because they can't get into it. And the reason why we now know that it can't be fully sealed is because one molar has 300 meters of micro tubes, which that is like, so I can't even, every time I say it, I'm always like, how do you even say it? You know what I mean? And so they can't sterilize that. So basically, you've got this like death in your mouth that just can bring, now you could be fine or not know it, or it could be like 20 years later, you're like, hey, like whatever. Some people get a root canal and right away they've got like a frozen shoulder, something's going on with the vision in one eye. Also in my study of breast cancer, there was people, you can get thermography and then they can see the heat line signatures that will go from a root canal to a breast tissue. Do you know what I mean? So that shows up and you could see.
Yeah, that in the documentary they had like crazy statistics about how many women that had breast cancer, and it
Yes.
could be like if it was the left breast that had the cancer, it was connected to a certain tooth, and if it was the right breast that had the cancer, it was connected to another tooth, like for in over 90% of the cases.
Yeah, it is crazy. Now, correlation isn't
Really crazy.
causation, but
Yeah. Of course.
every, yeah, people that had root canals, like it was always on that same side. There's a
Yeah.
doctor, I'm not sure if he's still practicing, but he definitely did for like 40 years in Europe, and his name is Dr. Joseph Eisels. I write about it in my book, and he treats cancer, but will not until the root canals are dealt with. And so if you
Really.
do have a root canal, obviously you need a great dentist. There's a good dentist over, he could be in Switzerland. I think it's Sweden or Switzerland. Sorry. Dr. Dome, Dome. He is great, and people come from all over Europe to see him. So if you have had a root canal, you got to test, doesn't mean you necessarily have to get it out, but if you can and it's a back molar, I would I would personally remove it, but you got to do it properly. You got to have then it removed. You want to have the ozone injected. You want the jawbone checked because the decay could have come through. And then hopefully you're getting your own plasma injected. You know what I mean? And then if it's something, definitely in the front area, that's going to take more finessing and you're going to need a replacement tooth or that kind
Mm.
of thing. But you definitely, any health issue, you really want to look at the mouth on that deeper level. Like if there is a root canal, could there be a jaw cavitation? Those are two main things that are very common and they're kind of bringing people down and it's hard to connect the dots because we didn't grow up thinking they're connected.
Yeah, I'm so happy we spoke about this. Exactly as you say, people don't connect the dots between like oral health and what's been happening in their own body. So I'm super curious about how is your oral hygiene routine?
Well,
And
yeah,
please include if you go for a cleaning at the dentist.
no, well, like all my beauty stuff is like, how can I always avoid an appointment or like going to somewhere?
Mhm.
So my first dental book, which is now called Holistic Dental Care, and it's in 5 languages and it's also on Audible. So there's a lot of options. But it was called Self Successful Dentistry: How to Take Care of Your Teeth and Avoid the Dentist. Because
Yeah,
my whole point is like, let's avoid the dentist, but we
yeah.
do need a good one. And most of us have like work to clean up.
Mm.
So, I mean, I knew we would have from all my research, but I was also in the middle of my breastfeeding birthing years. So after my research, I was like, we got to find that dentist one time. So our favorite dentist is in Texas. And we went down and there was just a lot of like childhood stuff we were kind of taking care of. So yeah, I go to the dentist very little and it's probably been 6 years. You know what I mean?
6 years.
Yeah. Because I
Yeah.
can tell. I feel like I know what's going on now. Like, you know what I mean? And I have dental mirrors, so we know things are okay and there's no emergency, but we definitely had to clean up the past. And I had a tooth that I didn't want to get root canaled, but it was not good in my mouth. It had kind of died. So I knew
So
that
did you get a root canal?
no, I knew not to even in my like before, and I remember the
Yeah.
dentist going, "Oh, could be it's so whatever." It was close,
Yeah.
but we didn't. But it did become a troublesome later, and then it kind of didn't, and I realized, oh, it's probably because it was like just dead. But it was still
Um,
a problem. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
I was in the middle of breastfeeding, and I was just like, I can't, just no, no dental visits. So, and also by that time, I'd learned so much about dentistry that I was like, I can't just go to the dentist here. Like, I was just like, I know way too much. And I can't, I literally have to go like to Texas to go to like one of the top people in
Yeah.
the world. Because when you know, it's just kind of, it's uncomfortable knowing what you
Yeah.
know sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we did
It's
that.
super uncomfortable because I just need to like jump in here and say it took me 20 years to find a holistic dentist in Stockholm that I traveled to because now I live up in the north. And
Yeah.
I went because I felt, okay, now I really have an issue I need to be looking at and take care of it before it becomes like even
Yes.
worse.
So that is
But
the
it took me
balance.
20 years, but I was fine for 20 years.
Yes.
Didn't need to go.
And you know what else I found, and I write about it in my book, is like, unfortunately, the advice we think again, it's just like they did train, they got a lab and a degree, a lab coat and a degree, and we think,
Yeah, yeah.
but like I go into these examples. So one was in Canada with a journalist going to 20 dentists. One was in the States with a journalist going to 50 dentists, and they both went to like a place beforehand to really kind of assess what was needed with their tooth. And they kind of had the same issue, which was I think replacing a crown.
Yeah.
The answers from the 70 dentists were insane. From like, and most people miss the actual issue from replacing all the teeth in the mouth, from like 500 to $30,000 quotes. So that just really speaks to like sometimes you can go to the dentist and end up with issues that you don't even necessarily have, or go for that diagnostic and figure out, okay, do you have receding gums, pockets, bone loss? Like those are deep things to be working on at home, and it's going to take time. It's not going to just take a dental visit to take care of bone loss. So that's what we need to understand too, is they're not like magicians. We do need to work with them. Um, and then also, if you haven't been to the dentist for a while, or even if you've got a visit on the horizon, the 8 steps that we've mapped out that you can literally just do with like baking soda and hydrogen peroxide. You can also, you know, we have our toothpaste and stuff that we've made, but I like to just set it up for wherever you are in the world on generally any kind of budget. Like this is gonna work for you. And so if you do have to go to the dentist, definitely follow the steps for like 3 to 4 months, and then you will have a better, hopefully less costly visit, and you're already starting to deal with things. And then we have people that use our products and follow the protocols for years. And dentists are always like, "What are you doing? This is amazing." Or some of them, a lot of them are like, "I don't know what you're doing. Keep it up, but I don't need to know." Like they don't actually have the curiosity to find out, which is very interesting.
I think they don't want to know because it questions like their whole reality. Don't you think
Yes,
so?
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they would be having to question themselves. So that was what do you think about tongue scraping?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you do tongue scraping
Yeah. And you can
and
just use like,
flossing?
yeah, we have a tongue scraper, but you can even just use a spoon upside down,
Oh
or,
yeah.
a copper's good. Yeah, because again, you've got a plaque buildup. You'll find if you've been tongue scraping for a while, you kind of just don't necessarily need to, or it can be digestive issues as well
Mhm.
that's creating more plaque, but you definitely want to clear that off. And yes, flossing, um, I suggest flossing twice in our steps, because when you floss the second time, you'll see why there's still stuff behind. But I really feel that flossing gets extra special when you do add the dental serums, which are really chock full of potent essential oils that are safe and beneficial for oral care. Because we've also learned that essential oils have been used for thousands of years in oral care. They act as quorum sensing inhibitors, which is just a fancy word or term, QSI, for meaning that it prevents pathogens from grouping up and expressing their genes and then grouping into gangs and creating biofilms. So they're biofilm busters, and they're able to clean up the pathogens without disturbing the beneficial bacteria, which this is exactly the kind of substance that we need for our mouths, because we need to take care of the pathogens but not wreck the beneficial bacteria like the classic synthetic alcohol mouthwashes do, which is again, even on our skin, we can help our immune system, but without decimating the bacteria that go with it. And that is also like hydrogen peroxide works like that as well. I don't know through what intelligence, but it can deal with the pathogens, but not negate the beneficial bacteria. So that's usually like, that's when you've got really good substances for your mouth. And so when you do that and you floss with that, I mean, the gums, they just get way more toned and just in that condition that our gums should be in, because really so much of the health of the tooth is about the gum, and that gum holding that tooth in place and not letting that gum recede, which I think of like turtlenecks. You want a nice turtleneck for each tooth, and you don't want to get into like the cowl neck, V-neck situation with the gums receding. Because also that when the gum line recedes, that part of the enamel that's exposed, it's different than the other enamel, and it's way more vulnerable to cavities. And that's where you can see those gum line cavities that can happen in both children and adults.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of pictures in your book
Not of like teeth, but I have, I have
or
illustrations.
illustrations of what you mean when you're
Yes.
describing how the turtleneck and so
Yes,
on?
I actually have teeth with turtlenecks and cowl neck in the book.
That's cool. So just to get a little bit nerdy here,
Yes.
the floss that you're using, I heard
Yes.
about something that's called like dental tape that had I found this like in a health food store in Stockholm for like 20 years ago
Yeah.
that also had like tea tree oil in it and it was like fluoride free.
Yeah, it's
So
the
I'm
same concept, except you're putting your own way more potent drop, not some
yeah.
like tea tree that's evaporated right on
And
fresh.
what to use as the floss?
Then we do sell floss, but if you're getting, just look for, there's floss in health food store, they'll work, but don't get like petroleum. If it says wax coated, no, that's petroleum.
No.
Just
Oh.
no, I don't I don't know what's out there in the drugstore, but like generally no. I'm sure there's something that's very simple, but don't get make sure there's no substances on it. And that'd be my general advice there. And then just find that one that works for you. We have about 3 different types of floss. No,
Yeah, you
4.
have it on your store?
Yeah.
All right, I'll put it in the show notes so if people are wondering and they want to have it, so for sure. So I just wanted a place to get it.
Yes, yeah, there you go.
Okay, there we go. We solved the issue. So cool. So if someone's listening to this and they're feeling like overwhelmed because like it's a lot of information here, and they're like, "Shit, I've been doing all of this wrong." So where's a powerful but simple place to start? What do you
That's a
think?
great question. Well, also just know, like I'm just sharing tons of little tips and treasures and things too. So yeah, I can sound like a lot. Do you mean start with your mouth or starting in general?
In general, we
Yeah.
we want to be like renegade beauties, everybody.
Well, I mean, always just start where you can, you know? One other thing that we haven't talked about is soap, which I think could kind of come in handy
Yeah,
now.
let's get soap in because that, especially hand soap. I want to have no question marks after leaving this interview about how to wash my hands.
Well, two things there. So you want to use just real soap when you're using soap. Um,
What
we
is real soap
That's a great
nowadays?
question. We
Sorry for being so.
I know, no, I love it.
I need to
Generally,
know,
I
but
would just say like it's just simple. Like you could find it at a farmer's market or really in your health food store. Like you'll see it and you'll know. Like a
all right.
Castile soap or like a clay soap, you'll know. We sell 3 types of soap and shampoo, which you could all use, and they're lovely. But you can find soap around. That's so I just again, not everything has to come from us, but
Oh,
we
yeah.
do like to provide the best, and we have a lot of fun making it. So
Yeah.
you're going to want to use soap, and you're going to want to generally use that for like pits and bits, scrubbing your nails. It is good to wash your hands. We have been like, there's this high, clean, or what is this? The hygiene hypothesis or whatever, that kind of as a society, we've in the past 50 years, we've been too clean, but I would say it's more like we've been too chemically clean. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Lysol, the Purell, the whatever, just no, none of that. There's a lot of issues, but nothing like a good old fashioned like scrubbing your nails, washing your hands is good. And we also have what I call palm purifiers, which literally smell like they're almost like a cologne or perfume. And I mean that in the best sense, as in a great, beautiful smell, not something that you're afraid to get trapped in an elevator with somebody with. So when I say
Yeah. Yeah.
perfume or cologne, it's different. So palm purifiers, and that's a great, beautiful. We use a biodynamic organic alcohol, and you spray it and you go like that, and you're just dry, beautiful. They smell good. So that's good for kids, the whole family. They come in little bottles. We've got a few types. So I love that because you can get that quick clean. Because if you're traveling, and especially with kids and stuff, I think when I'm in the matrix, I like to keep my hands very clean. Actually, I
Yeah.
usually try and not touch a thing. So if I'm like going through the airport or whatever, I will literally make it my goal to touch no surfaces first.
I
And if
love
I
that.
had to, then I palm purify that. Um, so that's only where we need soap. So we don't need to be soaping our faces. We don't need to be like lathering soap all over our arms and legs. Like they never need soap. And so
Yeah.
just, yeah, don't do that area. And then for the face, for men and women, we suggest just like wash with oil, which is, it can be a long, beautiful thing where you can like massage it in, that kind of stuff, or you can literally just be quick. You wet a cloth or your hands, splash your face with water, and then put a squirt of oil on that cloth or on your palm of your hands, put it in for a moment, and then splash it off, and then you're good to go. So for a guy, that's going to be you're good to go. For a woman, they're probably going to add a drop more of that. It could be the same. We call them our best skin ever. So we have sandalwood best skin ever, frankincense best skin ever, which are great for the guys. And then you can do that process and then add one more squirt, and you're literally done. And that can be head to toe. Babies can be massaged in it. It could be a whole baby moisturizer. You can use it as a whole body moisturizer. and then your skin is breathing. You haven't disrupted the sebum, you've harmonized it. And even people with like deep cystic acne that, of course, are a little bit afraid of starting to wash with oil, it changes for them. And like people have stuff turn around in like, anywhere from a week to like 4 weeks where they're just seeing that improvement on their skin. But our skin does not need soap to like maintain it or to keep it clean, except for like, those pits and bits parts. But even with the bits, let's say, um, and I think men are a little bit more sealed in that area, of course, but even that, it's like it doesn't need it every day. And after you use soap on that area, especially for women's yonis, I do recommend we have yoni serums or taking a squirt of like a frankincense Bescanever and just on a damp cotton round, you could just squirt oil and then put that over the area just to kind of like take care of like what the soap removed and just get things juicy. And men can do that as well. We do have a Shiva Lingam serum for the man's area, which is a beautiful.
Yeah. Lingam, we need to translate
Yes,
it because
yes,
I've been in a bunch of tantric settings, so I know what lingam. I had no idea what lingam was before that. And yoni, they were like yoni and lingam, and we're gonna meet each other in the middle, have a sacred ceremony.
totally.
Okay, did you wanna explain what it was?
Oh,
You
I
know?
thought you were going to.
No, 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 no. I don't dare. I'm
That's why
not
I
as
was using those
renegade as
words.
you.
Well, for it's the female vagina is the yoni, although really it's like, yeah, is it
The
that
whole
the
thing,
whole
right?
area? We'll just call it. That's what I use it sort of as a general term to care for that area. So we have yoni serums that can help post-birth, pre-birth, and then just classic moisturizing. And then we have the Shiva Lingam serum, which is for Shiva Lingam serum for the man's body part, and because that needs some love too. And so that's good for that area.
Awesome.
That's
So,
my
so
explanation.
we covered that. Everybody happy. So, like, Living Libations isn't just a brand, it's like a rebellion. So what does it mean to live as a renegade beauty in today's synthetic, screen-driven world?
It's a quiet, beautiful rebellion, I think,
Mm,
where you you know, just have that, just the whole vibe. So I think it's sort of like the spirit of things. And to me, my beauty book is called Renegade Beauty. And for me, the main thesis of that book is for us is to understand that the cosmos is our cosmetic, which I think of as a cosmoetic. And it's
mm,
our engagement with the elements that are our finest beauty bathing attendants. So we want to understand and engage with sun, the fresh air, the wind, earth, lying on the earth, walking on the earth, getting the gifts from the earth through, all the botanicals and the foods that we eat, and water. So, pure water, showering with that filter on, hopefully jumping in some lakes and some rivers. And that bringing those together is really what will replenish our spirit and our beauty. It's not really another bottle of cream or another supplement. So I feel like that's like our foundational situation is engaging with the elements to feel that renegade beauty. And one thing I love about biohacking is the good stuff is really an element in concentrated form. And that's where I
yeah,
find like that the magic, or that's kind of the right tool, whether it's light or the pulse electromagnetic frequencies or working like with the ether, like hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, those kind of things.
yeah. Love that. And for anybody wanting to engage with you, connect with you, read your books, and get to know more about what you're doing, where should they go?
We've got livinglibations.com, our site, and you can email us through there. We also do free beauty consults. So you can just book it. And then we've got two people that are totally trained by me, deeply, done years of training. And so, yeah, it's just a call because I know it can be a lot. Like like everything I've just talked about, so you can have it sort of
Yeah, yeah.
dialed down for yourself. You can go through the steps, whatever. People bring their grandparents or they have little bridal parties. It's really fun, our
Mm.
mothers and daughters. So we have that service, and then I've got my books, which are on our website, but plus, wherever books are sold, and they're also Audible versions as well.
Beautiful. Nadine, I need to thank you like a lot, not only for this conversation, but for the work you've been doing for so many years. And I know like so many women and men have gained so much, I would say, like power and also being like more relaxed when it comes to just like being healthy, being vibrant, and not like putting all like what I got from you was okay, you can make beauty so simple.
Yeah.
But so one last question. I thought that this was the last question. So one last question.
Okay.
If you would like give me a mi minimal like go ahead beauty kit, what would that contain?
Mm. Well, I throw a best skin ever in there because, like, that can even help in the sun. It's just you need that beautiful oil, a toothpaste, and a poetic pit, or a dental serum, a best skin ever, and a poetic pit because you could add the dental serum to that baking soda and really stretch it out. So that'd be like the basics, and that would really, very simply change some core parts of like, a beauty routine, so to speak, or hygiene routine. And get in the sun. It's the finest
Get
cosmetic.
in the sun, folks. Yeah. Without the shades.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Nadine. It's been a huge pleasure, a huge honor because I've been following your work for many, 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 many years, and you've impacted my life a lot. And also, because I have 3 kids, you've impacted their lives indirectly. So, thank you so much for being you and the work you do.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm just so honored that I was able to have that positive impact with your family.
Yeah, thanks. I hope to talk to you soon and see what you do in the future.
Thank you. I do too.
Thank you.